Hello, care partners. Teresa Youngstrom here with Memory Care with Teresa Youngstrom. Hey, we have an amazing speaker for you today, and we've gone to a different place. What if we brought someone on who actually was living with Alzheimer's? What if we brought someone on who had personal experience with this? Well, we've done just that. And she's a special, special lady. And I can't wait to introduce her to you. Let me tell you about Dr. Joanna Fix. So, in her early 40s, our guest, Dr. Joanna Fix, was an academic star with an incredible career. She earned 3 college degrees and including a PhD, and was the chair of criminal justice and management at a major university. She was working as a specialist in organizational psychology and consulted with law enforcement. A few short years later, the activities we take for granted were posing new challenges, and the long hours of doctor's appointments and testing had begun. By the time she was 48, the reality of living with young onset Alzheimer's was documented in her chart, but her spirit to be all she can be is still alive and well. Join us today to share her story and glean the wisdom that she has as a tremendous advocate for all people living with dementia. Please welcome from Colorado Springs, Dr. Joanna Fix. Hello, Joanna.
Hi, I'm trying to figure out which way to put my hands so it doesn't look like I'm waving to the neighbors. Hi.
So fun, so fun. Thanks for being here. I so appreciate your time, and this is wonderful. You're a
Thank you.
busy
It's
lady.
lovely to be with you again, Teresa.
Yeah, so great. And so how's Colorado Springs today?
Today we're a little overcast, but that's a nice reprieve, if that's the right word, from the almost triple digits, which I did not expect when I moved to Colorado from California. I thought it snowed year round.
Yeah.
So I'm getting used to it.
Wow, yeah.
12 years later.
Yeah, that's a heat wave out there. You can get a tan. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm across the states over in Cincinnati, Ohio, but I get to come to Denver. My son lives there, and so we love coming to Denver. Denver's fabulous.
Well, you're going to have to connect with me. I'm only an hour south when you come to Denver. So.
Yes. And so I'll be there in October. I'll have to look up you and Paula Levy and Cheryl, and we'll just have lunch. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
Oh, so great. Well, today I just want to touch on your experiences. I mean, here you are, this beautiful woman, and no one would guess that you have young onset Alzheimer's. And I'm sure you hear that all the time. Can you take a few minutes and just tell us about your experience, your journey with getting the diagnosis? Because my understanding is that took a very long time and they were looking in all the wrong places.
Yes, I would be happy to tell you about that, and I will make it as painless as possible for me and you, but it certainly wasn't that way at the time. I was teaching a full load, and for those who teach at the college level, I was working at a university that worked on semesters. I had also been teaching at another university that worked on quarters, but I had a full teaching load. Plus I was in administration. So I was also serving as the director of academic affairs, and I was busy, and that's how I like to be. But I was starting to experience extreme fatigue. This was 2010. That's how I have to say the year. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
2010, and we're in 2024 now. So that was about 14 years ago. I was getting very fatigued. I was experiencing executive functioning issues, so trouble with planning, sequencing, carrying out in any type of order or any type of function that had steps, and that was not my normal, fatigue from just working too much. It wasn't something that sleep would fix. It wasn't something that taking a summer off would fix. So over the next 4.5 years, 2010 to 2012, I was experiencing these issues at work. Obviously, they were not going unnoticed by my students or my peers and my supervisor. And I was basically told at the end, the end of the spring of 2012, they weren't going to fire me, but if I was going to continue, that we would need to have a meeting with the other people in the department, because I was just a totally different person from the 2 years prior. From when my symptoms started, I was barely even able to find my classroom, and I didn't have any makeup on. My hair wasn't brushed. I was disheveled. I would sleep in my clothes the night before because I had limited cognitive reserves and energy to be able to get myself dressed in the morning and fulfill my workday. It was very problematic. So 4.5 years later, I get this Alzheimer's diagnosis, and they had looked in all kinds of directions, things that would normally basically plague someone in their 40s, which you're not suspecting Alzheimer's at that point. You're suspecting, something, anything but that. You're just not suspecting that, because that's typically the, older generation that we see, because age is a contributing factor. And it was a surprise, and it was a shock. And once we learned that this was my clinical diagnosis, we had to learn what that meant, because we had the same understanding most of the public had about Alzheimer's and dementias, which is, people are instantly imagining someone in their 80s or 90s. They're in a wheelchair, they're in their robe, they're not even verbal at that point. They go, they just visualize the hospice stage. And that's just not accurate for many of us. And I'm one of the 5% under the age of 65 with Alzheimer's, out of the millions and millions. But of that 5%, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people that are waiting for their voice to be heard, like me. So I'm just honored to be able to, talk with you whenever I get the chance, educate and advocate, because we're living with this. Many of us are really trying to change the tragedy narrative and the stigma.
Yeah, the stigma is big too. Having been a nurse forever, I can just tell you that I've worked with so many families that a diagnosis comes down, and then the kids are ready to put them in a nursing home, and you want to just say, hit the pause button, would ya? There's so much more to life. And I heard you sometime in my history, anytime I get a chance to hear you being interviewed, or read an article about you, I plug in. But I remember you saying that just because a part of your brain is struggling doesn't mean the rest of your brain is not functioning.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. I can hear you saying that, and it really just stood out, and it's so true, and it's great wisdom. I have a friend at church recently diagnosed, and she's sorting this out, and her son kind of took the car away, and is kind of putting walls down around her, and I want her to still live her fullest life, because we can. You impress me, and have always impressed me as a huge advocate, a strong advocate for people living with dementia, living with brain change. They're individuals. I love that. We need to treat them like individuals, and everybody's different. But you went so far to be a part of the 2022 Colorado Springs, Mrs. Colorado Springs pageant. I have to hear about that. It was so incredible.
It was actually the Mrs. Colorado pageant. I had already won my title as Mrs. Colorado Springs, and so I was competing at the state level in 2023. So last year, I can't even believe that it was last year.
Right. Incredible.
And thank you. And so this is part of the Mrs. America organization, if you're
Okay.
familiar with pageants, which I was not, but
Hmm.
it was really not my happy place to do something like that, because that's just not who I am. But I had a lot of encouragement and a lot of support. I had a couple care partners with me, Cheryl being
Yeah.
one of them.
Hmm.
And I just really felt like, if it's not now, it's never going to happen. This is a platform. This is an opportunity to really, really send that message. And I didn't necessarily want to win, but I wanted to make it far enough to get on stage and have that microphone to basically share my message with the audience. And what came out of that experience that stays with me most is being with the other delegates and, learning their stories, because everybody's got, a platform and something to share. But they did not know that I was living with Alzheimer's until, I got on stage. But they had learned so much that week, that pageant week, they call it, because they'd seen that I had care partners with me, and that I was, a little different, that I struggled with some things. And not to make too fine of a point on it, but I was in a different hotel because I didn't want to. I wanted to be treated the same as everyone else. I wanted to have the same experience the other delegates were having. And there were 50 of us, 33 in the married category. So that's a lot of estrogen. And I don't have sisters. So, but it was totally worth doing, even though it took months to recover from that. I don't even know if I'm recovered yet. But it really did. It did make the point. And we had a lot of traction after that. A lot of people asking questions, and, the awareness. It was really a phenomenal opportunity.
So you win the Mrs. Colorado Springs, go on to the Mrs. Colorado at the state level, and you made top 10 and
I
got
made
that
top 5. I was
top
fourth runner up.
5. Incredible, incredible. And that's when you had the chance to have the microphone and tell them your story.
Right.
Wow.
And they give you a really short, everything's timed there. And there's people that, take liberties with that. But this is the teacher in me and the daughter
Yeah,
of a Marine going, all right, you said I had 30 seconds. I'm going to, I'm looking at the watch.
I'm on it.
And we really got to share the message. I really got to make the impact I wanted to make. And so it was painful, but it was worth it.
Incredible. I've heard you say that we need to live kind of in the moment, not worry about what's back there, not worry about what's coming. Would you say you still feel that way? How are you doing today?
Well, today, I really rallied, Teresa, I have to tell you, because last night I only slept 4 hours, and the night before I only slept 4 hours. But yesterday was a tough day, but it was Sunday and I was hanging out with my friends. So I didn't put a whole lot of pressure on myself, but I wanted to prepare myself as well as I could for today, knowing that, I was a little sleep deprived. But I'm surprised at actually how well I'm doing. And I think that speaks to the support of you. We've known each other and done things in the past. At least we've talked and had some Zooms, and just knowing that this was going to be, for lack of a better term, a safe space for me
Yes,
today,
we try
and
to
very
make.
forgiving. And so that does make all the difference. It really does.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure you've got plenty of advice for other people on that journey to find the diagnosis, or now they have the diagnosis. What would you say is your best advice for those people, other people living with the new diagnosis?
Well, stay away from the internet. That's one thing that, unless you've been given sources that really, are going to actually, not tell you go get your affairs in order. I mean, that's an important thing for all of us. But unless this is going to help you live this new life, there's no point in reading statistics. There's no point in watching, the sob stories. I mean, we've all, we know how heavy this is. We know that it's tragic. We know that this is what it is. So let's not beat that, that information that's been there, that's been out there front and center for the last 100 years. What people don't know is, how am I going to not just exist, but thrive and live a good life? And, my main concern is for my caregiver, my husband, my care partner. I mean, I want him to have as excellent a journey with our marriage and, this whole process as possible. He's my main concern. I'm his main concern. So we're looking out for each other. And that to me is really what the focal point should be, is, hey, I'm now experiencing the world differently. What type of support do I need? And what do I need to expose myself to? What type of environment do I need to be in order for that to be successful? That might look different for, a lot of people, but so many of us are sharing experiences with this. So I can say, I'm having a similar experience to someone who may be in memory care in their 80s, who is early in the stage, right? They're early in the stage, but because of their age, and maybe they're just because of them being elderly and seniors, in your 80s, they are not in their home anymore because a house is a lot to take care of. So now they're in a different space. So really, this is not the death sentence that it was purported to be, years ago, and still is with some. It really is an opportunity to learn how to be in the world in a new way. And like Leonard Cohen says, one of my favorite people, everything has cracks, and that's how the light gets in. And so there are cracks in everything. I love that. I try not to throw in too many quotes from other people, but that was something that I heard again today. And I thought, that's really true. This is how the light gets in. And that doesn't mean that the cracks aren't beautiful and there isn't something to see in there.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I've never heard that. I love that. I'm going to repeat it though. I'm going to remember it. That's for sure.
Well, that's Leonard Cohen. Bless his heart. I just absolutely really loved his poetry and his music and his legacy. So yeah,
I'm definitely going to have to use that. From your perspective, and your husband Forrest, he's awesome.
I think so.
Yeah. How do we better prepare caregivers?
I think that caregivers, I think that they have. I always say I've got the easy part in this relationship. That doesn't mean that living with Alzheimer's is easy. That means that from my experience and my perspective in this relationship, I have the easier part. Now, that may not be true for everyone, but I think that because we are partnering, right? He's not caregiving. I mean, we use that term still. We are partnering.
Right.
So, it's not 50-50. It's not the total equal relationship that I would have hoped for, with a healthy brain, because I don't have that anymore. But I do what I can, and that frees him up to be at his best. So I don't need him to be perfect because I'm imperfect. I need him to be imperfect, and that makes us perfect together. I'm using that word a lot, sorry. But I think that we've made this whole idea of caregiving so complicated. And it's because all of this stigma from years and years and years of the tragedy narrative, and there's no cure, there's no pill, there's no way to stop it, slow it, or prevent it, or okay, yeah, but you know what? If you have a beating heart, you've already got the tools to actually develop those skills and I mean, go home tonight or today and make this a positive journey and a positive interaction. So it's all about the relationship. It's not
Mm,
about the pharmaceuticals. It's not
mm.
about, keeping somebody busy with bingo or goat yoga 24/7. I do exercise. I'm really passionate about keeping myself as healthy as possible, but
Good.
it's about being real and having fun and instilling humor. And this is really a lot easier than people may think it is. It's just the perspective needs to change in order to accept that the fact that this can be successful. You have to change. You got to go from head first to being heart first. And that's really critical to that success.
That makes so much sense. Have you been able to find, I know in the past you had talked about finding support groups for people with the diagnosis. Are those easy to find, difficult to find? What do you suggest? If someone's listening in my audience and they're like, okay, I've got a diagnosis, where can I go? What would you suggest?
Well, I can only speak from personal experience. For me, the most support and the most help that I've received are from, I'm just going to call them fellow dementees, other people that I know that are living with various forms of dementia. And there are a lot of us, and we connect over Zoom or we connect in person, but mostly over Zoom because we're all over the world. And we get together. We've developed groups through, I think TIPA might have something like that, but with National Council of Dementia Minds, that's Brenda Roberts' company. We've got, we're kind of like making a name for ourselves. We don't need someone facilitating. We know how to talk to each other, and we really get a lot out of that. So I think that when people look for support groups, there's all kinds of stuff for caregivers and care partners. And even if it says, you've got somebody living with dementia, they've got their care partner right there helping them, inserting themselves. For me, I prefer to be able to use my voice for as long as I have it. I know the clock is ticking. I know that I don't have forever. And so while I have a voice, I want to use that. And sometimes I'm going to lose my way. And so I have friends like you there to support me. But that is so important, to find other people like you and to connect with them and not be afraid of, that dementia diagnosis, but go, okay, this is how I'm going to be in the world in a different way. Where are my people? I've got to go find my peeps, because there's a lot of us out there, and we are still living, we're living our best life. We truly are. And that's in the midst of, we've got bad days too and bad moments, but there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of faith. There's a lot of love. We just have to connect.
Yeah, that is so good. Do you have any advice for my audience if they want to support you or support people with a diagnosis? Is there anything I can a way to direct them? Is there a website they can go? What do you recommend?
Well, I personally don't have any social media. I'm not smart enough to use my limited cognitive reserves. I have to try to get myself dressed and fed, with my limited reserves. But I do know, our friend Tipa Snow has got some wonderful training and education, which I think is just, absolutely fantastic. I love her. Brenda Roberts, my friend that created National Council of Dementia Minds, is a real advocate for lifting up voices of people with lived experience. On that site, which is dementiaminds.org, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of articles, there's a giant resource that we just completed, I think last year. I think that since those are the two agencies, along with the Alzheimer's Association, for me specifically, that I've been primarily involved with. And I want to say something else about the Alzheimer's Association is they they are really good about giving people literature on not just Alzheimer's, but frontotemporal degeneration, Lewy body, vascular. So if you were like me and you just had this cursory, knowledge, which is basically none, 8 years ago, of what dementia is, I would say call them and, ask for that literature, maybe go visit Teepa Snow's site, Positive Approach to Care, and look up dementiaminds.org. And of course, Teresa, I mean, you're just amazing. So I think that the best thing that people can do is realize that we are in this together, and we all want this to be a success, whatever your role is. If you're living with this, if you're a care partner, family member, or you work in the dementia community, we are in this together, and we want this to be successful.
Yes. Yeah. And we want to help each of us have our best lives. And it's going to look different, but like you've said in the past, just because a part of my brain isn't working doesn't mean my whole brain isn't working, and that I can experience some, a wonderful, beautiful, fulfilling life. And who knows, we may have 10, 20 years. We don't know. We don't know. So please don't put me in a box and shuffle me away when there's so much life to be had. You are a great advocate for that. You're out there doing things, you're out there, your voice is being heard. You're coming on to these Zoom calls and talking with people. And I love how matter of fact you are with, look, we got to stop the stigma.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because, that it doesn't help me. And I have gone on, you're going to get a few, quote, support groups that really aren't support, that are people wanting to kvetch, for the lack of a better term, and maybe there's a time and a place for that. That doesn't serve me personally. I don't need help being in a bad mood. I mean, just knowing that I can't cook for myself anymore, that sometimes brings me down when I need help bathing, when I need help dressing. So, I don't need help with, the stuff that I know has changed for me, but we need to lift each other up. And we are absolutely doing that by leaps and bounds. There are so many of us out there that are doing that, if someone will just ask us or give us an opportunity to hear our voice. So I really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah. And I'm going to have you back again. You'll come back, won't you?
Of course. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not allowed to leave the house.
Good. And I'll come see you. I'll come to Denver and we'll have lunch too. So that'll be fun.
I would love that.
Colorado Springs is where I need to come down and find you, just south of Denver. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for having Dr. Joanna Fix here today. Incredible information. I just find her so remarkable. Her wisdom is incredible. She's living this, and yet being a huge advocate, she's out there telling the stories and just educating people left and right on better ways to be living with dementia. It's not all over just because a couple parts of your brain are not working. We know what the diagnosis is, but guess what? I teach lots of classes and I have to tell people, okay, so it's terminal. Yes, absolutely. And I'll take that very seriously. But guess what? So is everything else that I'm going to get or everybody else is going to get. So we don't get out of here alive. So each of us need to live our lives to the fullest and, surround ourselves with people who are going to be supportive and that we can support, and to live our best life. And so I just so appreciate Dr. Joanna Fix for being here today. And I hope that was fruitful for you. We'll have her back because I think she's just incredible. Remember to like and share and subscribe. Again, today, another incredible speaker for you. And lots of people in your circle need to hear what she had to say today and be encouraged. So be so encouraged. Thanks to Griffo Productions for being the best broadcaster we have. And as always, keep in mind, you all, you got this.